Let us pray. Almighty God, we who have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelele lezwi letu na bantu balo, umeseli ukulungu kwipondo letu. Kosi sikalela i Afrika, tina bantwana bayo, kokele in kokeli zayo, iniki ukolo i Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Good afternoon, honourable members. I'm going to call the House to order. I recognise the Honourable, the Chief Whip.
No, Speaker, I have nothing to, no motion at this stage. Thank you.
Okay. No, I said I recognise the Chief Whip. He said he has no motions at this stage.
May I help him?
Is it a point of order, Honourable Ace?
There was a request at the Program Authority that there's precedence given to the Public Service Commissioner. So, is that not happening anymore, Honourable Speaker? Because that was agreed in the Programming Authority.
Thank you. Honourable Ace, I will direct the request to the Chief Whip. Chief Whip.
We're exercising our discretion and we'd rather have it at the normal time of motions. Thank you.
Okay. Honourable Ace. Sorry, order please, members.
Honourable Speaker, I think it's appropriate that we say it here. When we're in the Programming Authority and we ask something, we honour that. And if we differ and we change, then we speak to each other. There was a clear request from Honourable Wiley to have that section and precedence up front. And we all agreed, yes, no problem. Now, what's going to happen in future when we have a subject for discussion and there's also an agreement on precedent and then all of a sudden it's not coming up first again. I have no problem where it is, Honourable Speaker, but there's just the proper process and there's a proper decency built into this as well.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Ace. The Chief Whip.
Speaker, thank you very much. I've heard the lecture from the Honourable Chief Whip on the other side. So in light of that, notwithstanding Rule 198, precedence be given for this, for the motion in order, in my name in order paper. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? There's no objection. It's agreed to. Honourable Ace.
Nothing's agreed to, Honourable Speaker. There was a request that a precedence be given, correct? Then you ask, do we give precedence to it? And then there was nobody against that. But then you started with the motion and then that we agree to the motion. I don't know what you said, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Ace, sorry, if I could just, you raised the point of programming and I take my cue from the order paper and what has happened at programming. The Honourable Chief Whip then stood up and said that he moves a motion after you had said that because Honourable Yankee picked up and that is why I then said, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Because the Chief Whip had indeed put a motion to the floor that precedence then be given. That's what happened. That's how I understand it. Well, that's how I understood what I heard. All right, so there were no objections and it was agreed to. So we now move to the next item on the order paper, which is the motion in the name of the Honourable M.G.E. Wiley. That is the motion we are dealing with, which was agreed at programming. And there are 3 minutes. I've not received a speaker's list, but there's 3 minutes.
The Honourable Speaker.
Yes.
I would like to address you. I did in the past address you, and I think it's important to address you again. You will recall last time you said you're going to call the whips together. You sat at the back here, but then you declined to speak to the whips. You also made I think you called it a ruling last time. We still wanted to engage you, but you were so quick to get out of the House, Honourable Speaker. But I think it's important for good process, Commissioner. You submitted the report in totality. There was even members speaking to that report. Honourable Joseph even spoke to the section of who's the person that must be appointed. I can refer you to page 271 of Hansard. He actually motivated Mr. Goosen be appointed. So that was very clearly part of the report. Then, Honourable Speaker, also on page 271, you continued, you said, I now submit the report for approval. Honourable Speaker, this report was not approved at that meeting. You know the DA didn't have the numbers at that meeting. They only had 16 votes. They were supposed to have 22 votes to pass this. But I further want to say to you, Honourable Speaker, and I did say this in the past, it's very, very clear. There's a section 125(2). Now, section 125, Rule 125(2) is stating very clearly, a question has been fully put, and I must explain this. No, Honourable Speaker, give me an opportunity. You can rule whatever you want. Give me an opportunity. No, I'm busy with...
Chief Whip, the Honourable Ace is on a point of order, which has now become a debating point, but I'm going to afford him the opportunity to finish his point of order.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, in terms of Rule 125(2), a question has been fully put once you say ayes and noes. We've gone through that whole process in terms of one report. This report is paragraph 1 to 6. It includes a recommendation on a name. So the question has been fully put. And then I would like to refer you to, Honourable Speaker, to a very important section that's been used in municipalities. We used it here before, and it's in our rules. And that section is very clear. That is section 145 of our rules, Honourable Speaker. And they say no draft resolution, and this is what we have on the table today, a draft resolution may be moved in the House, which is the same in substance, and Honourable Speaker, it's the same in substance as the 10th of May, as a draft resolution which was approved or rejected during the preceding period of 6 months. That's the principle that counts. Okay. It was rejected, Honourable Speaker, as if when we set a motion of no confidence in the Premier, that was rejected. Okay. But we can't come with a motion of that again in 6 months, like in the City of Cape Town. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, that motion can't be entertained today. And that's very, very important that you do stick to procedures and you do stick to rules.
Thank you, Honourable Ace. Your point of order is noted. I did, though, bring the House a considered ruling on the matter on the 17th of May 2018. And if you wish to take the matter up, you would need to take the principle of my ruling and have it placed on the agenda of the Rules Committee for deliberation. But my understanding is that we have followed the process to the letter as I was guided, so we will proceed in that manner. I'm not going to deliberate any more discussion other than to say it was a considered ruling. I have ruled on the matter, and I trust that you will consider that.
Say we will have to bring in substantial motion in terms of the way you conduct this House and your rule. We will have to write a letter to the Premier who must consider this, and I hope she will really consider everything. And of course, eventually, and I hope we won't get to that point, to the President of the Republic of South Africa.
Your comment is noted, Honourable Ace. I said I now recognise so do I take it the ANC won't be using the 3 minutes that there's no motion? Okay, I see the Honourable, the DA.
Thank you, Speaker.
Order,
Speaker, it is important that I give background relating to the process. I want to speak on this motion.
Order, please.
The ad hoc committee concluded its work on the 4th of May 2018 where 2 final candidates were discussed and where 1 candidate was recommended to the House in order to give effect to Section 230 of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Standing Rules. The report of the ad hoc committee was published on Tuesday, 8 May, by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, the ATC document, which means announcement, tablings, and committee reports, where Mr. Leonardo Goosen was recommended to the House to be nominated for appointment as Public Service Commissioner for the Western Cape. The Programme Authority Committee
John. Order, please. The result is as follows. There are 23 ayes and 0 noes. The motion is therefore agreed to. I now need to move to interpellations. However, I think there is an interpellation. I have been alerted to the fact that the Honourable Chacham and Honourable Dugmore is not in the House and that the matters have been referred to the ministers. So interpellation 1 and 2. No, I'm not talking. Kindly take your seat. I am still addressing the House. So I am told that those 2 interpellations fall away, the one to the Minister of Economic Opportunities, because the Honourable Chacham is not in, and the other one is to the Minister of Human Settlements, as the Honourable Dugmore is not with us today. So we would need to move to interpellation number 3, which I couldn't say that. Interpellation number 3 is by the Honourable Yankee to Minister Bradal, Local Government. Order, please, members. Let us get on with the business of the day. I now see the Honourable, the Minister of Local Government, Minister Bradal.
Thank you, and thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the interpellation. Reporting of corruption at the municipal level is done via the National Anti-Corruption Hotline, NACH, which is managed by the Public Service Commissioner, PSC, which in turn outsourced the operations of NACH to a reputable auditing company to ensure the confidentiality of its complainants. In the Western Cape Province, we have 23% of our municipalities, including the city of Cape Town, which operates their own anti-corruption hotlines, while the majority of district and local municipalities prefer to use the National Anti-Corruption Hotline number for the registration of complaints relating to corruption. My department has concluded an agreement with the Public Service Commissioner, which allows the Provincial Forensic Services to provide technical and forensic support with the investigation of complaints received via the NACH and the Provincial Anti-Corruption Hotline related to corruption complaints linked to municipalities within the Western Cape Province. Pertaining to awareness-raising measures, as part of the department key performance areas, support was rendered to all municipalities in raising anti-corruption awareness by providing training, developing anti-corruption material, as well as brand merchandise on whistleblowing to be used in municipal awareness campaigns. During the 2016-17 and 17-18 financial period, my department has created awareness of the Protected Disclosure Act, or the Whistleblowing Act, through a targeted distribution of the anti-corruption material to all municipalities, which includes posters, pamphlets, booklets, and branded merchandise. On fraud prevention plans, by way of monitoring, my department has ensured that all municipalities have developed fraud prevention plans, which in essence reflect the strategic objectives of the local government anti-corruption strategy. Many municipalities follow the structures proposed by the municipal integrity framework, which incorporates leadership, commitment to fighting corruption, the establishment of governance and oversight structures, the implementation of anti-corruption measures relating to prevention. The municipalities must implement and develop their own integrity management plans over a period of 3 years with effect from 2017 to 2018 financial year.
Kindly finish up, Minister.
My department, in collaboration with the National Department of Cooperative Governments, have commenced with the rollout of training in the following districts, and then I mention all the districts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now see the Honourable Dianki.
I was looking forward, before I start, to see where my colleague is, who will come after me. I can't see him, maybe he's missing in action, but I am very happy to take his time and include it in mine as
Honourable
I get
Dankie,
it.
that is not allowed. You have 3 minutes. You may proceed your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Now, I have enough time today because of his absence. Let me start this way. And this is an opportunity I think the MEC is missing. You would have started here. Let's remind each other. We are in a best-run province, the West Cape, the Western Cape. This is where we are. Now, this best-run province, amongst the other things that it prides itself on, the first one, if you put the awards on the side, is the issue of clean audits. This is where I thought the MEC would have started. But let me remind him. Let me remind him. I know my time.
You have 3 minutes.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I've got full 3 minutes and I'm so relaxed. Now let me remind the MEC about the clean audits in the municipalities. We have 11 municipalities that are being investigated for corrupt activities. Now, amongst those, I just want to pick up what we know are municipalities with clean audits. It's your George municipality. I'm starting now.
The clock is stopped.
Cape Town municipality, Bito, Theewaterskloof, Langebeek, Stellenbosch,
Honourable Dankie,
yeah,
speak to me,
Langsberg.
please.
And out of that 11, we know of that. No, that's where I'm coming.
Order.
Out of that 11, we have 4, which is your Oudtshoorn, Beaufort West, Cedarburg. Who are not. Now, George Municipality had a clean audit, but the department presented to us,
Honourable
to the
Dankie, you
standing
need to
committee.
finish off your first 3 minutes. It's just about up.
It's about just about. No, I'm
So you
getting
still-
there.
you still
you,
have
you might have to
opportunities.
allow me to finish because I'm the only one here standing.
No, Honourable
Now, Nasela is
Dankie.
not here. The minister will speak last.
Honourable
Can we
Dankie,
just
take your
make
seat,
that arrangement
please.
and agree? Let's just agree. I must just be the host.
The Honourable Makwesela is not here. Yes, no, and I'm aware of that. So now we give you your next 2 minutes, please. There we go.
Go. There you go. Now, out of that,
2 minutes.
this is where I was coming to, Honorable MEC. So in presenting, the department in presenting what the work it's doing, George Municipality is listed as having so many corrupt activities. This is the municipality with a clean audit. I'm trying to make the comparisons. Beto, the same. Because if you go to George, these are the issues that you're talking about in George. There's only section 106 that the minister is putting in. The only highlight the minister can tell about us in George is the hawks have come in. It's the only thing that he can talk about. Everything else is still to be investigated. Now, the question is going straight to him, not to the hawks. The question is very clear. What has been done regarding the corrupt activities at the Western Cape municipalities? His department did the best to write things down and present them. But in everything else the department has done, they're basically saying nothing, because it's about investigation. Let me stay in George. It was not presented when the department came to the committee. In George, you have 15 million, Honorable MEC. 15 million that has been spent on mediation. 15 million. Now, even a court of law would not spend so much money on mediation. In fact, if we were to use that 15 million, you could easily have appointed 10 directors in that municipality. I am hoping the 15 million in George is part of what we are still going to investigate. I'm hoping that the hawks, that's what they are sitting on, because that's a serious corrupt activity in George. So what we are having also from his report, the minister has only told us the following things. He's got plans, and plans. That's what he presented just now. We're planning to do this. This is what we're going to be doing. This is what municipalities are doing in terms of the national anti-corruption. He's not able to tell us exactly as an MEC and the department, this is what, except asking for the hawks to come in, this is what we have done in terms of, so I can give you a tick for the awareness program. That's super. Well done on that. But the awareness program does not deal with corruption. It makes citizens and everybody else aware. You have a big tick on that from me. So well done on that. But that means nothing.
Honourable Dankie, if I could just alert you into your final 2 minutes now.
No, I'm on the only one standing. See, please allow
So
me.
you still have 2 minutes left.
So in the tabling from the department, we are getting the following. There are invalid appointments across municipalities. The MM in this municipality, whether in Kanaland and the CFO, have been invalidly appointed. The question you ask, where is this MEC? Are you only waking up when you are beaten and then you start making a noise? Because why would invalid appointments happen under your watch across all of these municipalities? And you have to refer things to the provincial treasury that have got nothing to do with provincial treasury, because the appointments of MMs, that's not where provincial treasury comes in. You have across the municipalities tender irregularities. Each one of these municipalities that I've listed here, there's something common are your tender irregularities. It can be. There's something wrong about the health of those municipalities, as if there's no MEC that is able to be proactive and attend to this. All you're waiting for is a result of the anti-corruption hotline nationally and the awareness program that you are doing. And therefore, I put it to you that as an MEC for local government in the Western Cape, you are failing these municipalities. The only thing you do, you claim them when they have clean audit. Maybe the clean audit, you don't even know how these clean audits have come about. And then you spoke about 23%, which is part of one of your own things that you kind of doing. And therefore, I mean, for example, if you go to Kanaland, there are further investigations on racketeering, non-compliant of the CFO. You cannot wait for a hotline or hawks to deal with those issues. You suppose you have got sections in your department that are reporting to you on weekly and monthly basis about the emergence of these issues. What it means is that you are not proactive. What you have are policies and plans, and you are hoping that those policies and plans would do a job by themselves. And I don't know what you are being paid for. If we're having this increased number of irregularities and corrupt activities in the Western Cape municipality. This is what I want to put to you. In your last 2 minutes, please find an answer to respond to.
I see the Honourable the Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We live in the best run province and we're proud of it. Clean audit, it's a shock that the ANC don't understand that there's a difference between clean audit and forensic investigations. But obviously, if you belong to the ANC and you're in such a weak position that you can't brag about clean audits, then you will not build on it, because they made a promise in 2014 that by 2019 all municipalities will be will have clean audits, and they couldn't adhere to their own promise. We invest a lot of municipalities, and we will keep on investing the municipalities. We believe as a party in accountability, and we will keep our leaders accountable to the people out there. We've got a no-tolerance attitude towards corruption, and if you look at independent reports like Africa Rating, Impact Report, the last one, the best financial municipality in the country, it's all in the Western Cape, and we're very proud of that. 8 days after we alleged received complaints on alleged corruption within George, we've acted. The ANC can't do that even in their wildest dreams. The difference between the Democratic Alliance and the ANC, let me put it out there, and to show you that we're the only party who's serious in clamping down on corruption, is that we didn't interfere in any walks investigations 2 days before by-election. We've let the walks walk in, raid the municipality. We still won that by-election because the public is not stupid. They understand that the ANC is not serious getting rid of corruption, and the DA is the only party who will protect their interests. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes interpellations. We now move to questions for oral reply. And the new question on the order paper, the first question is from the Honourable Ace to the Honourable Premier Zille. I see the Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Ace has asked me how I and my government are confronting white privilege and black poverty to address the major inequalities in the Western Cape.
Order, please, Honourable Dankie.
I welcome the question and the interjection. And as usual, I will do my very best to answer it as honestly as I can. Let me begin on this question of inequality by saying that it is well known that Cape Town is the least unequal city in South Africa, and that
Order, please.
and that the Western Cape is the least unequal province. No, we are the least unequal. And the statistics and the empirical research confirm that. I read my own Mero and Pero, and I read the research coming internationally. Even Africa Check, which is very critical of all politicians actually, but does a disproportionate amount of checking on what we say, has found that it is indeed true that the United Nations has found that Cape Town is the least unequal city, the most equal city in South Africa, and that in fact Buffalo City, Johannesburg, and Ekurhuleni are the most unequal cities in South Africa. Well, it's news to you, but you should actually. This is the fact.
Honourable
Please
Bianchi.
do. I can in fact give it to you.
Interjections? Sorry, Premier, I'm just reminding the Honourable Member, interjections but not running commentary. Thank you.
And when you come to the province as a whole, Madam Speaker, you find the quite extraordinary statistic that rural unemployment has gone down to 14%. Now, that is quite exceptional when you look at.
Order, please.
It's quite extraordinary that, according to the Honourable Janki, the only place that the national government is eradicating poverty is in the Western Cape. That's his logic. In fact, that's the last place they would do it, because this province is run by the opposition. But the most extraordinary thing is that we have pushed unemployment in the rural areas down to 14%, not only at a time when national unemployment is climbing, but at a time that we have had our worst drought in living memory, and according to the experts, a 1 in 400-year drought. And of course, that affects the rural areas disproportionately. But despite that, Madam Speaker, we have managed to bring unemployment down, which is quite an exceptional feat. And I would like to read from the quarterly labour force survey, which shows, again, that when it comes to job creation, the Western Cape outperformed all the other provinces, creating 123,000 jobs out of the 165,000 jobs created in the whole country since the first quarter of 2017. I'm definitely coming to white privilege. I'm coming to white privilege, okay. So, the factor that causes poverty and inequality most is unemployment, Madam Speaker. It's a long day. A very long day. It's a long day for sure.
Order, please. Members, we have the Honourable Premier on the floor. Please afford the Premier the opportunity to respond.
In fact, in any ideology, the common factor for reducing poverty and inequality is to get a job. And everybody understands that getting a job requires investment and economic growth. That all ideologies, even communism, understand, Madam Speaker. So, the results have been quite extraordinary, and the number of jobs in the city of Cape Town itself grew by 78,000 year on year.
For who? This is the key question.
Primarily,
order, please, Honourable Janki.
Primarily for people with low skills, because that growth was jobs in the tourist sector, in the tourism sector.
Premier, sorry, can you kindly
sector.
take your seat, please? Honourable Janki, if you wish to pose a question, there's an opportunity for 4 follow-ups. Please do not pose the question directly, but through the chair. Thank you. You may proceed, Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, everyone knows that the best antidote to poverty and inequality is a job. And everyone also knows that you don't get investment and economic growth unless there is a capable, corruption-free state. And what we've been doing, Madam Speaker, over the past 10 years is creating a capable state operating under the rule of law, which is one of the reasons we react so promptly, for example, to reports of corruption. And for that reason, Madam Speaker, we are getting more investment and growing more jobs than anywhere else in the country, and that is a direct reflection of the work we have done to reduce poverty and to reduce inequality in the Western Cape over the past 10 years. Now, I am not denying that there is a thing called white privilege and that it continues. It's such a thing as. Yeah. It's such a thing as white privilege. Well, you know, if you knew what all the... I haven't revealed myself at all.
Honourable
Madam Speaker, if he actually looked on all the websites that discuss these matters, people say white privilege is a thing, and then they unpack it. And it's usually the woke folk who do it.
Honourable Dugmore, if you want to direct questions to the Premier, I have provided guidance to the House. Yeah, but you can't have a running commentary of an interjection, Honourable Makaka. Yeah.
There is such a thing as white privilege, and it continues to exist 24 years after apartheid, and despite stringent affirmative action legislation and preferential procurement, with which, incidentally, this Western Cape government complies. But I also reject, Madam Speaker, the denial that there has been any progress. The middle class in South Africa, the black middle class specifically, is now considerably bigger than the white middle class, which is as it should be. The problem is that the growth of the middle class has now hit a ceiling because the number of people the state employs cannot be stretched any further and has grown by a third, at least, and probably more than that, during democracy. So the state cannot employ any more people, and now the only answer to increase the middle class is to grow the economy, and simply changing the composition of the state and state-owned enterprises will not cut it. So it's very important for us to understand, Madam Speaker, that when it comes to employment equity, you will see that, in fact, the Gini coefficient, which is a measure of inequality, shows that in South Africa as a whole, inequality narrowed. But where it really widened, and one of the major contributing factors to the situation where we have the highest level of inequality in the world, is that the place that it is dramatically widened is amongst black South Africans. And that is what has contributed to it. So there is such a concept also as black privilege, and we can discuss that in some detail as well. But the widening gap between black Africans is what has driven the Gini coefficient as we have seen it in recent years. Statistics South Africa said that. Now, Madam Speaker, the tragedy is that the ANC's application of BEE and affirmative action has become one of the key drivers of inequality and poverty. The ANC's driving of affirmative action and their affirmative model has become one of the key drivers of poverty and inequality. And let's look at some examples. I spoke last week in this House about what happened at Eskom and how the price of electricity is continually increasing because of bad policy decisions and because of the cost of literally billions in the supply chain to make provision for middlemen and women who add no value but make up quotas. So that's all they do. And the blockage on the green economy sector that could bring prices down for everybody in order to protect the corrupt elite network and their ill-gotten gains, to meet the kinds of quotas that the ANC sets for affirmative action. So the result of the ANC's policies of affirmative action and black economic empowerment has meant, Madam Speaker, that electricity for the poor is getting more and more expensive. They are cut out of green economy interventions, and middle-class people who are able to afford the installations in their homes provided by the market are getting cheaper and cheaper electricity. And that shows you why legalized corruption, which is what we see with Trillion, what we see with Goldfields, actually is responsible for broadening the inequality in our country and massively increasing poverty. And the DA believes very strongly in broad-based black economic empowerment, but we believe it genuinely has to be broad-based and opportunity-driven. We believe that the primary objective is one of dealing with inequality, not one of enriching the already advantaged. And that is the fundamental difference between our approach to genuine broad-based black economic empowerment and the black elite enrichment, which really involves legalizing corruption, which is what the ANC does. And we can see the consequence of the ANC's policy, because we could have had economic growth all over the country in the same way we've had in the Western Cape, and we could have brought down unemployment in the rest of the country as we have in the Western Cape, despite massive demographic growth, except that the opposite has happened. Madam Speaker, I've looked at the statistics for unemployment, and compared with 1994, when about 3.2 million people were unemployed, we now have 9 million people unemployed under the ANC's policies. So the trajectory in the Western Cape has been to contain unemployment and bring it down, despite the massive demographic growth we have faced. And in the rest of the country, unemployment is now up to 9 million people. So you can see what we are doing about inequality and poverty. We're bringing down unemployment. And the time has come to ask this question of every other provincial premier to find out what they are actually doing. Let's look at some other things. We believe that economic growth and opportunity-based BEE are the best way to deal with unemployment and poverty. And many other countries are learning the same lesson. I've just read a very instructive analysis of race-based affirmative action in Malaysia, which has fundamentally failed poor people, but just like in South Africa, re-enriched a small, very wealthy elite to the great detriment of the poor masses. And equally in the United States, where I have just been, the challenge is to bring the poor black community out of poverty, and 50 years after introducing affirmative action and racial targets, that has not happened.
You know you're answering a question, not making a speech.
And the question is why? The question, Madam Speaker, is why? Now, it's very important, because if you're serious about dealing with inequality and poverty, you have to know why certain strategies fail. And it's very important to look at the real reasons. Now, I've got piles and piles of research on the real reasons, but I can really summarize them here. The key factors that keep the poor underclass poor in the United States is the collapse of family life, leading to single parenthood and absent fathers and teenage pregnancies. Secondly, the high rates of crime. Thirdly, widespread alcohol and drug abuse. Fourthly, a street culture that celebrates violence and challenges authority. Fifthly, bad schools and often uncaring teachers. Sixthly, a reliance on welfare and a more general dependence on government to provide. 7, debilitating perceptions of victimhood. 8, a mistaken reliance on affirmative action measures which generally benefit an elite while bypassing the poor. That is the summary of the many analyses there are. Now, I think that if you look at the situation in Malaysia and the United States, and increasingly, given unemployment and inequality in South Africa, you'll find that it is the same factors in all these countries. And so the real question, Madam Speaker, is what are we doing about such things as the collapse of family life and single parenthood? Now, it is absolutely true, Madam Speaker, that the Honourable Ace worked tirelessly and was indeed an elected public representative of a party that did a lot to break up family life through influx control. So it's critically important to deal with that. It is answering the question. It is answering the question.
Honourable Danke, allow me to rule on, please do not. Thank you.
And indeed, we are trying to do our very best to reinforce the family life and deal with single parenting. Now, it's absolutely true, Madam Speaker, that when teenagers have babies and when fathers abandon their children, it entrenches poverty profoundly. And all the statistics will tell you that. And so we have done everything we can within our mandate to deal with that problem. Let me just give one example, Madam Speaker. If single parenting entrenches poverty, orphans are that much more vulnerable. And you will recall a time not long ago where the DA government in the Western Cape was the only one that bucked national ANC policy and ensured that people living with HIV and AIDS were given antiretrovirals.
Started by the ANC in 1994 as a just to remind you, in case you don't know about that.
We definitely know who started it against the national policy that was supported. In fact, South Africa has the highest HIV and AIDS, the highest number of people living with HIV and AIDS in the world. And we also have the most comprehensive and extensive antiretroviral rollout, pioneered against ANC policy in the Western Cape. And indeed, Madam Speaker, if it wasn't for the DA government, there would be many, many more orphans in this province and many, many more single-parent families. Madam Speaker, if you look at the other list of things...
Honourable Premier, kindly take your seat, please. Chief Whip.
I heard the honourable member on the other side there say, tell more lies. Now, she must indicate whether she's directing it towards a member of the House here.
Sorry, Chief Whip, I was not aware of that. Would you care to point out the member? Would you care to point out the member?
I think it was Member Makaleni, but I stand to be corrected.
Okay. All right. Okay. In the absence of doubt, we will proceed. Honourable Lecker, please compose yourself. You may proceed, Premier.
So, Madam Speaker, when you look at
Honourable Dankie.
single
Sorry, kindly
parenthood,
take your seat, please,
May I
Premier.
address you?
Yes, you may.
It is within the Premier's right, in response to a question, we have a speaker in the House who needs to direct us. We're over almost 30 minutes now in one question being responded to. There must be something wrong about that. You've got to direct, because she's gone beyond the relevance.
Honourable
She's gone beyond the relevance.
Do not point, Honourable Dankie. Do not point your finger firstly, and then secondly, if I could, you know what the rules are. I am not responsible for the substance of the Premier's response. Yes, certainly. And, well, the Premier is obviously prepared for this question, Honourable Makaleni, so I'm going to allow the Premier to proceed. You may proceed, Honourable Premier.
and I must say, Madam Speaker, that
Order, please.
that if you compare the number of white children growing up in two-parent families compared to the number of black children growing up in two-parent families, it is true that white children have an enormous advantage, because 80% of children white children grow up in two-parent families, and only approximately 30% of black children do. So that is where this white privilege certainly has a bearing. High rates of crime, well, obviously we don't have a mandate over crime in this province, Madam Speaker, because crime is a national mandate.
Order,
Widespread
please.
alcohol and drug abuse. But the one other factor that we have a mandate over is education. But that is why it is really interesting to see, Madam Speaker, how we get opposed when we do the things in education that are aimed at bringing down the discrepancy, like holding trade unions to account, like holding teachers to account, like ensuring that all teachers do their jobs, and like introducing things like collaboration schools. Those are all efforts aimed to reduce inequality and increase opportunity, and those are precisely the kinds of things that get marginalized and sidelined by the ANC. If you look at how we distribute resources under the norms and standards, you will see that our poor schools get almost 12 times as much as our least poor schools. So those are the things that we are doing, Madam Speaker. Now, in human settlements, we work day and night. In social development, almost all the budget.
Members, there's too much noise on both sides of the House. Can I please ask you to cooperate? The Premier is on the floor.
In human settlements, we would have built double the number of houses that we have built if it were that communities would simply cooperate with us and help us get on with the job. This morning I spent a long time with Minister Madikizela in a meeting discussing precisely the resistance we get from communities to delivering houses for them, and it's a very important set of considerations that we need to take. Now, social development as well, we spend almost 100% of our budget trying to reduce inequality and beat poverty. I can't go into all the details there. Now, Madam Speaker, I cannot speak for all whites at all, because I was not elected to represent a race group. I was elected to represent a set of values and principles and policies. So I can only speak for myself when I say that I am profoundly privileged. Profoundly. And not specifically in material terms, because my parents arrived here literally as penniless refugees. And for a reasonable part of my childhood, we were poor. And I can almost say very poor. And although they managed to save enough to keep themselves in reasonable comfort till they both died at age 96, there wasn't, certainly not for me, any kind of significant inheritance. When my father came here, Madam Speaker, he wasn't allowed to work. He wasn't allowed to work because he was a German, and South Africa was at war with Germany. And yet he went to fight in the South African army against the Germans. So why was I so privileged, Madam Speaker? I had really good and committed parents. They applied discipline and boundaries. They believed in service and personal sacrifice. They were absolutely strict on personal responsibility and deferred gratification and thrift. No one was allowed to spend money that they didn't have or didn't earn, because we didn't have it. And a great commitment to truth and the courage to stand up for it. And in all of that, both of them always stood up and did what they could to ensure that every South African had equal rights and equal opportunities. I don't have to go into all the challenges that my family faced, because there were lots, and I don't want to be self-indulgent, because that was the worst crime in my family that you could be, because that was absolute rejection of self-indulgence of any kind, because we all knew that life is unfair. But what they taught me is that consistent hard work and perseverance will get you much further in life than intelligence or talent. And I can tell you, I came with that bank of values, and that is unbelievable privilege. I can't think of anyone who is more privileged than I am in those things that really matter. And it was on that basis, and on that basis, every South African within one generation can get out of poverty. And that is what everybody on this side of the House is working for. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Ace and then Member Mitchell.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, yes, Premier, you referred to, I believe you referred to the National Party. You recall the days we sat next to each other in the cabinet of the National Party. You recall that? Don't pretend you were not there. Don't pretend you took the decisions, Honourable Premier. You were part of it. You took that decisions. You were part of it. You were only 2 out of 11. So don't forget it, and we can go back on that line, and we can even tell you what was the decisions we took. But Honourable
Order.
But Honourable Speaker, I would like to ask the Premier, because when she came back, and it's relevant to this, from Singapore, she was on colonialism. When she now got back from Quebec, it's on whiteness. You wrote that liberal whiteness article, nothing better than that.
It's a follow-up question.
But Honourable Speaker, Honourable Speaker,
Honourable Ace, sorry.
Honourable Speaker, I must just say this.
Please assist your member who's on the floor. Honourable Ace.
You must be a bit tolerant. And sometimes you will watch what's happening at National Assembly as well. There's a lead to a question, and then you ask your question. But let me get to the question, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Premier, you didn't refer to how you would confront white privilege and black poverty. The budget is just this big. So somehow you must explain to us, and this is part of the question, how that will shift. You can't just create something in the middle, in between. There must be a shift. And then I want to ask you the following. Only the measures that you have taken in the Western Cape, and we didn't hear that on inequality. Do you agree with your leader, because you've been referring to the DA, although you're not allowed to speak on their behalf? You refer to the DA, where the leader of the DA said the only measure for inequality is race. And I want you to ask you, do you agree with that? He said there's no other ways to measure it, not even salary, not income, as you try to reflect on today. So your position is a very clear difference of that of the DA. So please, speak as a Premier. I don't think you can speak as a DA.
Thank you. I see the Honourable the Premier.
I certainly can't. I'd like to be protected, Madam Speaker, so that I can actually
I will
answer.
afford you the
what
protection.
I will try to turn into a question. The bottom line is that MEC Koenhoff, who had abandoned the NP in disgust, was the DP's MEC for Health at the time. And he drove the decisions. And he made the decisions because we were not answerable to Premier Morkel. We were answerable to the leader of the DP, Henny Bester, at the time. And that was fundamental to the coalition agreement. And that is true. So, that is the first point. But I must also congratulate the Honourable Ace. He has managed to be a member and public representative of two parties that have really driven inequality and poverty amongst the poorest in this country. Quite extraordinary. He managed to he came from one political party that did it, and he's now in a second political party that's doing it.
Honourable Dianki, we have honourable members in the House. Thank you. You may proceed, Premier.
I'm going to my next point next. Thank you. The Honourable Ace is quite right. The budget is only so big. And the biggest budget item is health. And we spend well over 90% of the health budget on health services for the poor. And most of the DSD budget, the Department of Social Development, I think 100% of that budget is spent on services for the poor. And in education, while we provide public education across the board, middle-class people massively subsidize and cross-subsidize education for the poor. The norms and standards funding, as I said, is almost 12 times greater for our poorest schools than our least poor schools. It's absolutely true. And in fact, Madam Speaker, I said almost. And Madam Speaker, the work that we are doing to ensure improvement in quality in schools for poor learners is massive, including getting tens of millions of rands in donations to help us fix some of the worst of those schools. The 3 billion rand in broadband and e-learning that we're putting in, we wouldn't have to do for the middle-class schools because they all have their tablets and they all have their private sector providers. We are doing that for the poor, Madam Speaker. So our budget is overwhelmingly and quite correctly skewed to the poor. But as the Honourable Ace says, there is only so much budget. Our Department of Human Settlements budget is 100% directed to the poor. But there is only so much budget. And in the end, the only way to deal with that is to grow the economy and get people into jobs. And anybody in South Africa who does that, knowing that we've got a tiny, narrow tax base of 13% of our population. We've got 7 million personal registered taxpayers, and we have 17 million grant recipients. There's only so much you can do. So the critical thing is to bring down poverty and to bring down inequality is to grow the economy and create more jobs. And the only way governments can do that is by creating a capable state under the rule of law and creating an environment for investors to invest and keep their money in here and expand their businesses. And that is what we're doing better than any other province. As for race being a marker of inequality, well, that's how Statistics SA measures it. And that is why we know, on the basis of the Gini coefficient, on a racial basis, that the inequality between wealthy black South Africans and the poorest black South Africans is really what is driving the upward spiral of the Gini coefficient. Thank you.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to start off by saying thank you, Premier, for building and for your commitment to building an inclusive Western Cape. I think years from today, when you won't be here and I will still be here, we will honor that commitment. Thank you very much. But I want to ask the Premier, Madam Speaker.
Order, please.
I want to ask the Premier that how could the empowerment of young people and the youth, especially the rural youth, contribute to address the inequalities that is still currently faced in this province?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Jantjie, members, I'm going to move to Rule 44, so let's please cooperate.
Madam Speaker, we've got a potential great dividend and a potential great burden. We've got lots and lots of young people, and the great dividend of countries with young populations is that if they have skills and entrepreneurial drive, you really propel that country forward. In Quebec, for example, they've got massive economic growth, and they're worried that they won't have enough people. So they are requiring people and putting incentives in to have more babies. In South Africa, we've got very low economic growth and lots of young people. And so unless we can change that particular downward spiral into ensuring that our young people are drivers of growth and drivers of opportunity, we are in deep trouble. And that is why this government is doing almost everything it can to ensure that young people become an advantage and an opportunity for South Africa as a whole. And that's why 4 of our game changers are directed at the youth. Broadband is essential for everyone, but primarily for getting young people connected and preparing them for the economy of the future. So our e-learning game changer is pivotal to that. All the skills and opportunities in our after-schools game changer is pivotal to that. Our alcohol harms reduction game changer is trying to get young people out of the vicious spiral of becoming dependent on alcohol for recreation early on in life. I can't work out which school we might want to be selling alcohol at, but obviously Honourable Dugmore knows more than any of us on this side of the House.
Order, please.
Such ignorance is really hardly worth worrying about. Now, Madam Speaker, the alcohol harms reduction, the after-schools game changer, the e-learning game changer, the broadband and the apprenticeship game changer are absolutely critical to getting young people into work. And if we can do all of those things, we will turn what could potentially be a burden of angry, alienated young people into a talented workforce that can really build the country of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Ace.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Premier, why do you keep on saying to confront inequality, you don't have to confront inequality between white privilege and black poverty, but between black people themselves? And that's what you've been saying. You say there's a growing group and there's a poor group. Why don't you want to admit there's been white privilege? Why not?
I said there is white privilege. Of course I said there's white privilege. Well, you see...
Please, order, please, members. Kindly direct your questions through the chair.
There is white privilege, of course. I mean, if 80% of white kids are growing up in two-parent families and only 30% of black kids are growing up in two-parent families, that is your start of the division right there. Not the number of children. I'm not blaming anyone for a number of children. I'm saying that that is the root cause of the division between white privilege. I'm not talking about the number of children, for goodness sake. I'm not even mentioning, or I am not even alluding to the number of children. I'm talking about the number of parents.
Premier, kindly take your seat, please. Chief
I'm
Whip.
talking about the number of parents.
Premier, would you
I
take
said-
your seat, please?
Look, can I?
Sorry.
Speaker, may I address you, please?
Yes, you may.
This is the way malicious rumours start, where the Premier has not said that, what Member Ace is accused her of doing, and he's repeated it and repeated it, trying to get it to say it. She has not said what he has said.
All right. Thank you.
I definitely did
sorry.
not say that. I said 80% of white children grow up with two parents. That's the only number I mentioned.
Where the children got to do it?
All right. Can we get some composure here, please? You may proceed, Premier.
I gave a long list of the real reasons in countries that have had affirmative action for many, many decades as to why poverty endures and inequality endures. I gave that list. The Honourable Ace doesn't like the real reasons. And I've explained what we're trying to do about that. We've tried to keep people alive so that they can parent their children with antiretrovirals, while the ANC's policy was not to give antiretrovirals. We are trying to make sure that children get opportunities in a growing economy. And I've spelled out how we're doing that in education and our game changers. I've spent all this time trying to explain what we are trying to do to eradicate inequality and poverty, driven both by the National Party and the ANC. And this government is doing its best to overcome it where we govern. And we're doing far better on every measure than any other part of the country.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
This is the final follow-up. Thank you.
Premier, what steps has been taken to reduce the Gini coefficient in the Western Cape?
Well, the critical thing that you have to do to reduce the Gini coefficient is get people into jobs. That is the critical thing you have to do to get to reduce the Gini coefficient. And that is why we are the least unequal province, because we've got more people into jobs. It is as easy as this. We ignore the rich people and we ignore the middle classes. They look after themselves. They pay for their health, they pay for their education, they pay for their safety, they pay for everything on their own, and they pay their taxes so that we can help the poor and spend 100% of our health budget on the poor, 100% of our Department of Social Development budget on the poor, 100% of our human settlement budget on the poor, all of our strategies on the poor. That is why we do that. And the bottom line is that when you create more jobs, Madam Speaker, you reduce inequality. And if I can just take the Honourable Member through that, out of 165,000 jobs created in South Africa from the beginning of 2017 to the beginning of 2018, 123,000 were in one province alone, the Western Cape. That's what we're doing.
Thank you. That concludes the first question. I now move to question 2. Members, there's too much noise and engaging across the floor. Can we do that after the sitting? The next question is the Honourable Ace to the Honourable the Minister of Finance, Minister Mayor. So am I correct? My order paper, my question paper has... Am I correct? It is the Honourable... Yeah, thank you. And I thought you Honourable Yankee. I see the Honourable the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The answer is yes. My department does monitor the spending of capital budgets by municipalities, and it is monitored specifically in terms of Section 71 in-year monitoring process. The Provincial Treasury also administers the following transversal projects to address the underspending of budgets. There is a monitoring of the top 10 capital projects per municipality. In addition, there's a development of the Western Cape supplier database and the related interface with the central supplier database to assist municipalities with the awarding of tenders and prevent the awards to people in the service of the state. In addition, we also have a supply chain management and asset management information as an assessment tool to also monitor the capital spending of the City of Cape Town, but also to the other 30 municipalities. In addition, we have the local economic development and supply chain management district engagements, specifically also focusing on infrastructure development. We also have an accredited municipal budget cash flow, asset and supply chain management training for all the municipalities that is done through the universities. And also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I have also personally, there was a local government MTech engagement with the City of Cape Town on the 24th of April, and I have also personally attended that particular meeting, and more concerted efforts is required to accelerate capital spending, noting that the City has implemented a project portfolio model which compels a planning methodology. Don't worry, Honourable Member Ace, I won't read this full pack, but it's available for you to read after this session. It is quite extensive, but I won't read this full pack of minutes, but I'm happy to do so if you require me to do so. But there's also capital is spent, is monitored also on a weekly basis at the high level by the executive management team, that is my senior management team, between us and the City of Cape Town, specifically with the senior managers and the CFO. The capital spending is also closely monitored by the accounting officer through monthly meeting with his executive directors in the City of Cape Town. This was quite an extensive meeting that we had with the City of Cape Town. We looked at the capital budget for the next 5 years specifically, and also specifically we have looked at whether the City of Cape Town in the capital budget have reprioritized the capital budget in the context of the current drought that we have seen. And I am pleased to report, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to this House that of the top 10 capital infrastructure projects, 8 of those projects have been reprioritized to deal with issues of the drought. I thank you.
Honourable Ace. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, MEC, for that response. But MEC, you referred to your monitoring, you referred to, and you showed a thick document there, but all of that is not helping at all because we don't see the results. And I want to ask you specifically, in the Western Cape after the third quarter, and that municipalities are supposed to spend 75%. All of the municipalities in the Western Cape only spent 40%. And the City of Cape Town only 39% of the total capital budget. So all of those words, the monitoring, the thick documents, it's not helping. What are you really doing?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, what we are doing, the Honourable Member knows as a former MEC for local government. He knows fully well. You...
Order.
I don't need his help.
Order. Order.
You are the last one whose help I will need. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in terms of the lifespan, the Honourable Member knows very well. He's a learned scholar. He knows that in terms of the lifespan of capital projects, this LGM Tech assessment that we have dealt with covered the capital budget over a 5-year period. The Honourable Member is fully aware that many of these capital projects are multi-year projects, implying that it starts with the first year, you start with a feasibility study, you start with the development in the second year sometimes, and eventually in year 3 or 4 or 5, the real capital work starts. The Honourable Member is also fully aware that you never, the Honourable Member knows that countrywide, the Honourable Member can look at the National Treasury statistics, that this is not a sign that we are not spending. I have the figures here. No, the Honourable Member knows very well that it is not always possible to have, between the third quarter that he's talking about, 75% expenditure on the capital project. That is not the benchmark. No municipality in the country has that particular indication. So he knows that very well. What we are seeing, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are monitoring the cash flow management, we are monitoring the tenders, we are monitoring the implementation. The Honourable Member is also aware that in some cases,
Order, Honourable Janchi.
the Honourable Member is also aware that what sometimes happens, if a contract, for example, is cancelled, a contractor goes under, then you cannot spend. But unlike in the ANC provinces, when a contract is bankrupt, they still pay the contractor. We don't do that in this Western Cape province because we do proper cash flow. But let's get down to the basics of the situation. When there are certain issues of gross underspending, we are reporting it. We are reporting that particular underspending. We engage with a particular municipality. We ask specific questions about the specific things. But Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have seen, and I'm satisfied, that 90 in the previous financial year, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we assessed at the end of the financial year the full scale of the capital budget spending trend in the city of Cape Town. And I'm glad to mention that there was a 7% variance and there was a 92% expenditure in that specific 12-month cycle. So, in short, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am satisfied that the measures that we put in place with a 7% variance and 92% spending trend, I am satisfied that that is the best record of all the metros in the country.
Honourable Ace, and then I'll get back to Honourable Joseph.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, this is serious, and the MEC is not answering it. If you get a municipality like the City of Cape Town spending 39% of their capital expenditure, and the total expenditure on capital, I mean, it's not happening here in province even, 40%. But Honourable Deputy Speaker, the MEC must explain to us. You get a municipality like the Eden District Municipality, that is on 18%. After the third quarter, after when they're supposed to spend 75%. You get Cederberg on 20%.
Order, member.
And now this big municipality.
Order. Member, just get to your question, please.
Yes. Please explain it. And it's not enough to say you're monitoring this. What are you really doing to spend it? Reprioritization is not helping. There's been an IDP. People must spend the money where the people say it must be allocated.
Minister Mayor.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I have before me the city's 2016-17 annual financial statements. This current year is not yet completed because this shows in the process. Honourable Deputy Speaker, because we are looking at the trend, the capital budget that was approved in 2016-17 is 6.3 billion.
Order.
The capital budget actuals was 5.9 billion. There was a 92% spending on the benchmark. Honourable Deputy Speaker, that honourable member was a MEC. So he should be familiar what the benchmarking exercise is in the current financial year. So for the end of this financial year, the benchmark that we now have to meet in terms of capital expenditure trend is 92%, in fact 93%. For this financial year, I want to see a 94% spending on capital budget in this financial year that we are currently in. So the honourable member now asked about that specific trend of the capital budget. I'm quite satisfied that the measures that we've put in place, the commitments that the City of Cape Town has made, they will be able to achieve that specific spending benchmark that we have put in place. And with a 7% variance, not entirely my specific expectation, but I'm quite satisfied that the measures the Provincial Treasury is putting in place through the IYM or the Section 71 reports, we will make sure that the spending patterns of the City of Cape Town does improve.
Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Yeah, if the ANC can only help the ANC in other provinces, the country will be in a better place. The country will be in a better place. I want to ask the Minister, let me ask the Minister, approaching the financial year, Minister, please tell us about the meetings between yourself and the City of Cape Town and the Provincial Treasury with the City of Cape Town in approaching the financial year, how this underspending will be managed. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member Joseph. We have regular interactions between the City of Cape Town. I have also specifically, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I have also met with the MACO member of Finance in the municipality of the City of Cape Town to deal with that specific matter. I've also, both Minister Madikizela and myself, we are also involved, specifically engages the city because one of the underspending that... No.
Order.
You see, your party doesn't work as a collective. You work on individualism. So that's why Mankaka is not here. This is why...
Tell them, Minister.
Dakmo is on his own. Dakmo is on his own. Honourable Member Chatsam is on his own. Honourable Lekker doesn't even know where he's coming from. They have no clue.
Order.
No, I'm not joking. This is a collective government. We take collective responsibility, and there is a problem. Honourable Member, let me... Now, because you're a serious man, I'll talk to you. You're a serious person. Let me be serious. I'll account to you. Now, not to you because you work individually. You're not...
Order.
Okay, I'll do that.
Order. Minister, just 1 second.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, there is some issues that is currently being dealt with. Minister Madikizela and I are looking at this underspending, for example, specifically about the USDG grant. It is a matter of concern. And because it is a matter of concern, it affects poor people. And I've looked at these figures this morning. It's in the region of 1.3 billion and 1.4 billion for next year. These are serious matters. And for this specific, the question was from Honourable Member Joseph, is what other plans are in place? We are setting up now a next intergovernmental coordinating committee where this matter will also be discussed, and Minister Madikizela is in constant contact about the underspending on the USDG grant. However, this morning, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I also had the privilege of looking. I've also noted that the spike of at the end of the fourth quarter, there was a massive spike in the Human Settlement Development Grant of the City of Cape Town. So we are monitoring it almost on a daily basis, the current spending patterns, specifically as it relates to infrastructure, because this cabinet, Minister Ellen Windy, Minister Donald Grant, Minister Anton Bradell, and Minister Madikizela is part of PHG1, where they have prioritized infrastructure-led growth. And since 67% of the budget of this government find its way in the geographical space of the City of Cape Town through what we call spatial budgeting, we are specifically zooming into that. And I'm thankful for the work that my colleague, Minister Donald Grant, is doing into that specific spaces. Infrastructure-led growth is a priority of this government. And part of that priority is we are looking detail in this week. If the Honourable Member Joseph wants to know, we had this meeting 4 days ago, on Monday, where we again look specifically into the infrastructure-led. And we are determined to make sure that the infrastructure budget is on the increase, but also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I've also looked this morning at what does that mean on infrastructure. I looked specifically at the purchasing of new infrastructure. I've looked at repairs and maintenance. I've also looked at Minister Grant specifically about the resealing of the tar roads, because for us, those things are very important about infrastructure spending. And I'm particularly happy that the infrastructure spending and the infrastructure-led growth of this government is intact. We have also spoken, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we've also spoken to all the 30 municipalities. We've also spoken to the Honourable Member Dana Joseph, to the 30 MACO members of finance, to specifically zoom into infrastructure-led growth strategies. I was 2 weeks ago, went to the Central Karoo, and I've asked the district mayor and all the local mayors to please make sure that the top 10 infrastructure projects, they keep it in the book. We gave them a map of where these infrastructure-led projects are, the amounts, and we've asked them to assist this government also in oversight over those infrastructures. So I think, Honourable Member Joseph, the systems are in place, but I'm happy to report no system is perfect. If there's anything that we need to improve, we are happy to learn because we govern with humility.
Honourable Ace, the last opportunity.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the MEC referred to the 10 priority or 10 top projects. The question related to the city of Cape Town. And can the MEC please tell us, where's the lowest spending in that top 10 priority programs within the city of Cape Town? Now, while he referred.
Honourable Ace, as I indicated to you, and I'm happy to come back with a detailed answer because I want to be factual. So, no, you don't have to worry. Order. I want to be factually correct. I'm not like Zuma that's just shoot from the hip. Also,
order.
Our honourable member, that is a question that I'm happy to come back with the answer, but I'm happy to give the context. And I will come back to, I'm happy to come back. But Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have seen now that the top 10 infrastructure projects, 8 of those projects relates to the specifically to the drought and the water crisis that we have. And I will be very happy to come back to this House to give the hard figures. The Honourable Member is also a member of the Standing Committee on Finance. You also know that you are also a member of the Budget Committee. You are most welcome to also ask those questions in that particular question. Thank you very much.
We move on to the next question, new questions. First one to Mr. Ace to Honourable Mayor again. Honourable Mayor, question 2 under new questions.
Honourable Member, thank you for this question about the outstanding amount of money that is owed to the City of Cape Town. As at the 31st of March, we published through the Provincial Government Extraordinary Gazette in this House, dated 30 April 2018, the total outstanding debtors owed to the City of Cape Town amounts to 9.6 billion, of which household owes 7.4 billion, which is 81.7%. The organs of state owes 27.98 million, that is 0.3%. Commercial consumers owe 1.7 billion, which is 19.2%, which is 1.7 billion. And other consumer debtors reflect a credit balance of 116.5 million, or 1.3%. So that is the total amounts owed to the City of Cape Town.
Honourable Ace.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the MEC just said that in Cape Town, the debt owed is 9.6 billion rand. And I would like to ask what measures did they and also the City of Cape Town put in place to actually curtail this, seeing that just looking at the municipalities in the Western Cape, in one quarter, there was a growth in one quarter of 7% of debt. So what would that project over a year of debt growing? And it can't continue like that. Something must happen.
Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you. What we have done, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we did debtors age analysis by income source. We've also did a debt analysis by customer group. And we have seen that of the total of the debt, and we specifically look at the debt by age, and we have seen that 27.3% of the debt falls within the 0 to 30 days category. That is what is also known as current debtors. 2.6% falls within the 31 to 60 days, in other words, 1 to 2 months category, and 2.9% falls within the 2 months to 3 months, that is 61 to 90 days category, and 67.2% falls within the 90 days category. Now, the most significant income sources contributing to the total debt are, at the moment, in the city of Cape Town, and we are in discussions with them about this, are the water services and property rates. We also, Honourable Member will know that we respect the separation of powers, but we facilitate through cooperative governance. Also in this specific matters, this is also a matter that is also of concern to this cabinet, is also of concern to the national landscape in South Africa, and so we must not throw this as if it is just a specific Western Cape issue. We will have to address this within the national situation, and I'm particularly concerned about this situation. The question may be, what caused this situation? That is the real question. And the deteriorating current state and the outlook of South Africa and the sub-regional economies, as expressed by both the national and the provincial treasury medium-term budget policy statement, honourable members, coupled with the increase, the Premier also gave earlier a context of the increase of unemployment levels and the rise of poor people, specifically the 9 million unemployed people that she has alluded to, the access to free basic services such as water, electricity, refuge collection, sanitation, necessitating municipalities to widen its indigent support that does not favour revenue optimisation and debt initiatives in municipalities. The City of Cape Town, however, does have a debt management policy and strategies in place and are exploring various initiatives and fiscal efforts to ensure improved collection of revenue. In this regard, the areas confined in the various stages of implementation, the credit control procedures are, for example, the classification of the indigent debt, which will be written off pending the installation of water management devices, the valuation objections, arrangements, debt handed over to attorneys, deceased estate, Section 118 transfers, and Article 74 admin orders are excluded. Then the arrears open for collection amount to 1.18 billion. Also, honourable members, I think this is a particular serious matter for concern, and one of the things that this cabinet has done, honourable member Joseph as well, we have asked that the cabinet must not be contributing, or the Western Cape government must not be seen to be contributing to the increase of the debt of municipalities, because we are also using services of municipalities, our schools, our hospitals, our clinics. We use water, we use electricity, we use refuge collection, we have to pay tax and property tax. And Minister Grant, thank you for the great work that your committee is doing, because we are also paying our debt that we owe to municipalities, because you cannot have a capable state by owing money to other municipalities for services that we have. And I have seen some trends, and I'm particularly happy, Minister Grant, that we are trying our best to make sure that there's fiscal stability within the City of Cape Town as relating to that. It is also our responsibility to make sure that we continue engage with the municipality, because if municipalities fail in South Africa, South Africa will fail.
Honourable Joseph first, and I'll come back to Mr. Oates.
Thank you, Minister, for the answer. I just would like to, and I'm concerned, if I hear the amount of 9.6 billion, it's concerning. But I would like to ask the Minister, and if just towards the end of this previous question mentioned about the Cabinet and government, so I would like to ask, are there any government departments who owned money to the municipality? And if there are, could the Minister provide us with a list and the amounts of that amounts? Thank you.
Minister.
Honourable Member Dennis, Joseph, thank you very much. I'll combine your question with the interjection. because I think the two things will, the interjection
Order,
does
order. It's
help us.
actually running commentary, Honourable Janki. Please contain yourself now.
Honourable Member, thank you for that question. Honourable Chief Whip, I think this might also be of interest to you, and to Honourable Member Mkasela, the Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Local Government. We have also, we have a thing called debt to municipalities owed by each province. And Honourable Deputy Speaker, it is a shocking state of affairs. If you just look at debt owed to municipalities by provincial governments, if you look, for example, at the Eastern Cape, R500 million. Okay. The question was other provinces, so he asked for comparative figures. So, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Free State, debt owed to municipalities, R1 billion. Gauteng owes 300 million to municipalities. KwaZulu-Natal, Honourable Chief Whip, owe municipalities, this is the provincial government, 700 million.
Order, Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Janki.
Can I address you, Honourable Speaker? The question is very specific. What outstanding amount of money is owed to the city of Cape Town? This
Order,
is what
Honourable
the question
Janki.
is.
There was a follow-up question. The Minister responds to the supplementary question.
But I'm asking you to intervene on relevance. We're
Order.
not even in the province outside of Cape Town. We're all
Order,
over the place.
Honourable Janki.
It can't be. Come here.
I've ruled on that one. The Minister may proceed. There was a question on that.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I'm responding to a question from the Honourable Member Joseph, and he asked for a comparative figures, how many provinces owe money to municipalities. I will tell you what's happening here because you will be shocked. Jy sal skaam raak. Nee, jy gaan skaam raak, Pier. Moenie nou vra nie. Pier, jy gaan skaam raak. In the Eastern Cape, 472 million from the provincial government is owed to municipalities. So they're not paying their bills. That's what it means. In the Free State, it's R1 billion. They not owe. That's why the Free State is falling apart, because the provincial government gets a service and they are not paying their services. In Gauteng, 300 million rand. And if you want to know about Mfuleni and many of these municipalities, and nowadays the ANC mayors get arrested. That's why they are in jail. It's a result of stealing this money. That's why they cannot pay this. In KwaZulu-Natal, the provincial government owe the municipalities 713 million, Honourable Member Joseph. Limpopo is a little bit better. Mpumalanga, 90. Well, it's a lot. It's not better. 167 million. It's not better. Northern Cape, 700 million. This is money that's not in the books. This is money that municipalities have to write off. This is money that they don't owe. This is less services. This is why the provincial governments of those provinces are now going to switch off the lights of the municipalities so that they be in the dark. I hope that don't happen because they like to steal in the dark. Also, Northwest. Northwest is 371 million. Now I come to the Western Cape, PRS, because you've asked. In the Western Cape, as he has seen himself, because the National Treasury made a presentation in this chamber, he has seen those figures. It is minus 49 million. And this means it is money that municipalities is owing the Western Cape government, because Minister Grant has put measures in place that we have proper payment system and a payment schedule and the verification of the various invoices. So we are the only province that have fully paid those municipalities, and he has seen those figures and he is trying to test us, but he failed.
Order, Honourable S.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I didn't ask that question, but let me get to the... You tried to respond of why people don't pay. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I would like the MEC to answer to that, because it's very clear, and it was stated by the City of Cape Town. Businesses simply refuse to pay, and let me add to that, because they don't trust the DA in the City of Cape Town. That's what's happening. And the question now, Honourable... Wait,
Order, Minister.
Busy, man.
Question is still coming.
The question, Honourable Deputy Speaker, what are you doing about the 1,000 largest debtors in the city of Cape Town, that's business and sectional title development. The 1,000 highest debtors is business and sectional title. You're doing nothing.
Minister to respond.
Nee, wacht. Hier raakt nou voorbarig. Pier, hang aan. Just a minute, I have that figures. Just a minute. Just a minute, Pierre. I will get to that. I have that figures here now. Yes, the commercial. I think, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the impression that the Honourable Member wants to give into this House, in the quantum and in the scale, in the depth and the magnitude of it, it is still excessive. It's 1.76 billion. But I have given an indication of the commercial and consumers that owe the City of Cape Town. I'm confident that the City of Cape Town has put measures in place. But of households, I indicated it's 81.7%. The organs of state is 0.3%. And I agree, 19.2% is too high, but I'm confident and satisfied that they put systems in place to deal with this specific matters, and I will also, on a regular basis, monitor commercial consumers in this specific regard.
Can we move on to the next question, which is question 3, Honourable Shapey to Minister Windy. Minister Windy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And the question around the mismatch of skills is a very, very important one, specifically one that we focus on in the province, but also a very, very important one for South Africa. For me, the big numbers that stand out, and we know we always talk about the youth unemployment problem in our country. Of all of the unemployed in our country, 7% are graduates. And that means there's been a wrong choice or a mismatch. And of course, that filters then down through from graduates down to vocational and technical training, and it just carries on through the system, and we need to be addressing this specific issue of mismatch of skills or finding out what the demand is. And of course, that's what we say within PSG1, we need to be demand-led. I think the Premier spent a bit of time talking about the province and the work that we do in trying to make sure that the demand is being fed by the correct skills. And of course, nothing stands out more than the latest jobs numbers that the Premier spoke about. So, of course, as she mentioned, in the last quarter report of the 165,000 jobs created in South Africa, 23% of them, 123,000 of the 165 in the province. As I normally say, I always like to gauge myself against the Gauteng province. And there, where they're 35% of South Africa's economy, they lost 124,000 jobs in the same period. And of course, so what is it that we do? We've got to make sure that we engage with the economy in trying to establish what that demand is. And in a number of those arenas, one of them, the apprenticeship game changer, and we really had a look at what the lack was of sufficient skills around artisanal skills, and we're getting closer to 60 years old now, which is the average age of an artisan, and that's where we see a massive gap. And of course, that's why we set up the apprenticeship game changer, making sure that we focus in this arena, making sure that we try to correct one of the biggest mistakes I think we made around skills in our country post-94, where we said we will do away with apprenticeships and that our FET colleges are going to be able to make sure that we produce the correct skills. We have to bring back the business partnership with our colleges, and that's the work that we're doing in that apprenticeship game changer or artisanal development. And of course, we put a fair amount of focus on there for the 2018-19 year. We've got 13 million focused on it. And we've got almost 500 artisanal candidates that are currently at host companies obtaining their portfolio of evidence. And we pay a stipend towards this process to try and influence an outcome. We also do industry training, and there we've got, we looked at business analysts, and we've been doing this for a while now. 135 unemployed graduates going into the program, and we're doing that in partnership with business again. We've got 3.9 million allocated in 17-18, and in 18-19, 2.5 million. And that is the allocation to rejig some of those qualifications that are also going in specifically into ICT and tech companies. We also do, to fill that gap in the demand, we work with software companies, and we've got the Schools Java project, 300 students currently in grade 11 in that project, in 10 schools in the province. And there I must really say to capacity, to the City Cape IT Initiative, thank you very much for the partnership that they have with us as a province to make sure that we are influencing the supply side into what the demands are of the economy. And then we go on to our industrial program up the West Coast, identifying where those demands lie, and then partnering with our FET colleges up the West Coast and making sure that we're filling that. We can go on to talking about how we affect changes within the Kulisa space. That's hospitality, agri-processing, the Blockman specifically, ICT and tech. So we have a number of initiatives there. And then, of course, there's the Work and Skills program that we continue to be in partnership with businesses, making sure that the work placement program is in place. We allocate 8 million for the 2018-19 year to meet the demand. And at the moment, we've just facilitated 624 jobs and placed 2,222 learners at host companies across the province. And of course, that can only happen if there's demand, because that's how you will build that partnership.
Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. To the Minister, well, I appreciate the current programs that you're doing, because you're looking very much at the present demand and the present need. But Minister, what about skills excellence? In other words, government and education institutions training up skills that are ultimately what will not be relevant in the future. So how are you planning to bridge that gap?
I think that's a very relevant question, specifically considering how the world is changing at the moment around jobs, and specifically the fourth industrial revolution. We will be releasing very shortly the study that we've been involved with between the Department of Agriculture and Stellenbosch University, having a look at what the fourth industrial revolution means for us as a region. And then, of course, then that starts to get us to change those processes, those different curricula that are in our colleges and in our universities, to start aligning that sector. We'll be following it through with some of our other Kulisa sectors. And perhaps also just to say that it's interesting, we've just had a contact from Harvard University who want to come out and see us. They've actually put Kulisa now in as one of their industrial policy modules, and they're going to come and talk to us about, so we're going to influence not only our own education space on what demand is and what the new jobs within those sectors are going to be, but we're seeing international universities also interested in what we are doing here, and I'm sure that's also going to help us get that alignment right.
Honourable Schaefer.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Minister, do you think that, and I'm going to leave our in the broad sense, do you think our current policies are aligned to bridging the gap fast enough?
It's also an interesting question. I think we've got to continually ask ourselves that question, but also we've got to be wary of chopping and changing. So I think because what we've learned now in the last while of making decisions on how we can enable that environment that creates jobs, and the proof is in the pudding, because you see it in the jobs numbers, that we've made those right decisions. But the big trick is going to be when does that morph into the next stage? For what is the Kulisa 2 stage? And I'm pretty certain, but we obviously have to do the work. I'm pretty certain that it's going to move much more to the ICT and tech, because that is the future, and we've got to make sure that we are relevant and competitive.
Thank you. We move on to the next question. Question 4, Honourable Lekker to Minister Plato. Minister Plato.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. The answer to the question is no, the department is not in partnership with the Nyanga CPF at Dr. Nelson Mandela High School anymore. Although the Nyanga CPF on 25 May 2017 signed the transfer payment agreement as legal prerequisite to the expanded partnership agreement with the Department of Community Safety. They unfortunately, Deputy Speaker, failed to comply with any of the conditions set out in the said agreement, and therefore this disqualified them from receiving any further funding. We, however, the department, however, continued to engage the Nyanga CPF to ensure that they perform their statutory functions as set out in Section 18 of the South African Police Act, so that the department could continue to fund them. Thank you.
Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I appreciate the response from MEC Plato, but I want to understand whether the developments pertaining to the partnership that the CPF with the department had engaged on was communicated to the relevant parties, meaning the Neighborhood Watch members that were deployed at Mandela High School. I'm asking this because when I had a conversation with those members, they alleged that they were not paid by the department for the services rendered at the school premises.
Honourable Speaker, I can't answer to the not payment. I will definitely go into that. I will investigate that. If services was indeed rendered and people not paid, that is a problem. And they need to get their payment for what they have done. That will be dealt with. But the department is in continuous engagement with the Neighbourhood Watch. We want the Neighbourhood Watch to become accredited. We had officials talking to them, but I will follow up on that as well, how far they are with that process. Because, Honourable Speaker and Member, if the Neighbourhood Watch could become accredited very soon, then we don't need to work via the CPF. Then we can work directly with and through the Neighbourhood Watch. And I would love the Honourable Member to assist me in that respect, that we do get the Neighbourhood Watch to be accredited, because they can then also comply in the same breath for additional funding from the department as well. But accreditation is key.
Honourable Lekker.
No, thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. MEC, the Neighbourhood Watch that I'm referring to is registered. At the moment, the same Neighbourhood Watch is in partnership with the City of Cape Town on a month contract, where on a daily basis they patrol the area of Nyanga. Now, I am really puzzled, but I want to ask from MEC Plato, what measures are there in place besides the 2 school resource officers at Mandela High? Because when the Nyanga CPF wrote the letter to request for their partnership, it was as a result of the lawlessness that was taking place on the school premises of Mandela High School. So I want to check what measures are there in place besides the 2 learner resource officers that are deployed at Mandela High School.
Honourable Speaker, if there is a request for more people to do security work at a specific school, they put in an application for that. The department, with the Department of Education, through their safety school program, they looking at it, and if they find there is grounds for additional security, it gets done. But there's a difference, and a difference between what the City of Cape Town are doing versus what provincial government are doing. Accreditation does not get done via the City of Cape Town. It gets done via my Department of Community Safety. I am aware of the fact, Honourable Speaker, to the Honourable Member, that the City of Cape Town is currently also in a process, a similar kind of a process, to fund neighbourhood watches of some sort to fulfill certain functions. And maybe that is exactly what the Honourable Member is referring to. But I think what we need to do, the 2 of us maybe need to sit and look at those issues with our officials. We do have a dedicated field worker that is from the department that is working in Nyanga, and engaging with the CPF as well as the neighbourhood watch, and I'm willing to facilitate such a meeting between us. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. That also brings us to the end of the time allotted for questions. The extended time today for questions, it's expired. We then move on to statements. The remaining replies will be printed in Hansard, by the way. We move on to statements by members. I first see the DA. Is it the Honourable Joseph? Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, the Public Audit Amendment Bill passed by the National Assembly on Tuesday was a significant step giving the AG more authority to deal with maladministration and corruption. The Office of the AG will now be able to refer adverse findings in its report to be investigated and, where necessary, recover funds from accounting officers that might have been lost due to non-adherence to the Public Management Act. The DA supports the amendment bill as it would go a long way in fighting corruption and holding officials to account. The report shows that 33 of the 257 municipalities received clean audits in 2016-17 financial year, and that irregular expenditure rose from 16.2 billion to 28.4 billion. Several officials and accounting officers will no longer be able to ignore warnings, and the corrupt officials who threaten staff of the AG should face the full might of the law. Deputy Speaker, it is high time that mayors who give instructions to municipal managers, chief financial officers and senior personnel that contradicts the Municipal Financial Management Act be held accountable for their actions. Political responsibility is important in government. However, political interference against rules for self-interest must be condemned in the strongest terms. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the AG in the Western Cape for their high standard of work and commitment to their mandate. We would also like to encourage the AG to implement the new Public Audit Amendment Bill without fear or favour. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC, Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, a hardcore race-fixated faction in the DA is executing a party capture project to regain control of that English libertarian institution, as it is not satisfied with the direction by the DA to fight white privilege and black poverty or poor demographic representation. It is noted this pink clique of the Pale Backroom Boys Club even had failed secret meetings led by the South African Institution of Race Relations to break away from the DA and so-called True Liberal Party. But true to its conservative blue collar, the clique instead opted to hollow out the DA's new progressive leaders and to allow the small gang of control freaks to continue with the oligarchic stranglehold on the fear and hate-driven DA. The DA leopard may try to change its spots, but it will still devour its own and cling to past privilege. If passage, gathering, and social media rumors are to be believed, Honourable members Mark Wiley, Debbie Schaefer, Alan Winde, and Helen Zille are allegedly determined to fight from the inside to win back their party from those thought to drive it astray. Watch the space. The DA split is inevitable.
Order. 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 Honourable Chief Whip.
Privilege to be called an honourable member, and the Premier too, please.
I did not hear that, but if the member says she did refer to honourable members, Honourable Wiley, so she did say that. I then move on to the DA again. Honourable Nana.
Deputy Speaker, thanks very much. Deputy Speaker, the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape condemns in the strongest terms possible the taxi violence that is in the taxi industry, consequently the murder of 10 and the injury of 4 people in the Western Cape. These taxi attacks took place over the 24th period from Friday evening through the Saturday in Cape Town, Bongweni, and Khayelitsha. Deputy Speaker, I commend the South African Police Service who have so far arrested 2 people in Gugulethu in connection with the 9 of the murders. It is therefore, Deputy Speaker, essential that all guilty parties are arrested and tried as soon as possible as they place individuals' lives and livelihoods in jeopardy. Deputy Speaker, I call on the taxi organization to continue to cooperate with the authorities, and the taxi organization must work together with the authorities in order to resolve their differences without resorting to violence. Further effective and lawful solution must be found to discipline those drivers and owners who transgress traffic laws. Deputy Speaker, taxi plays a vital role in ensuring that our residents are able to get to their places of work, learning, leisure, and prayer. The DA in the Western Cape is committed to ensuring that our residents have access to a safe and reliable public transport network which residents can be proud of and enjoy. Thank you.
No, it's again the DA. In the absence of the EFF, it's again the DA. Honourable Kivido.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it was recently revealed that the South African Council of Educators, that is SACE, which has the task of screening teachers, has not had access to the sexual offenders list for a decade. The WCD is, however, using a private organization to do the vetting, as SACE clearly does not have the capacity to perform this function. Ensuring that the teachers entrusted with our children are vetted properly must be a top priority. It is therefore appalling to learn that most of the provincial departments in the country may not be vetting teachers at all. Honourable Deputy Speaker, it is high time that we put the safety of our learners first. Children should not have to choose between getting an education and their safety. Deputy Speaker, with the rise of reported incidents of teachers sexually abusing school kids, this means that many more sexual predators are prowling in the system undetected. Deputy Speaker, schools are supposed to be safe spaces that are conducive to learning. In most cases, the perpetrators are known. The same applies to educators involved in incidents of sexual harassment and abuse in schools. They too are known. To move away from a world that allows sexual harassment and violence to happen, we must ensure everyone's right to participate in education free from fear in a culture underpinned by mutual respect. This can only be possible with well-informed educators who have taken into the time to understand the problem and support young people in engaging with the consequences. I thank you.
Thank you, Member. The ANC, Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As the ANC, we are deeply concerned at the ongoing conflict within the taxi industry, the loss of life and violence which has gone along with this conflict. It is critical that key to resolving these issues are firstly, the question of governance of the industry itself, and secondly, issues relating to regulation and permits. In this particular instance, we need to ask whether the DA provincial government has actually, by its inaction, contributed to this particular crisis. It's very clear that we have a situation where the DA MEC had the advantage of the Farlam Commission of Inquiry. The Farlam Commission of Inquiry was very clear as to what needed to be done. Instead of actually listening to those in the industry who felt excluded and were simply wanting to approach the court to get the Farlam Commission implemented, now almost 7 months later, that commission's recommendations remain unimplemented because the MEC has allowed himself to get involved in a court case where you could have simply agreed that these resolutions get affected. That's right, you didn't have to oppose. So we have a situation now where a judge was appointed last year. The recommendations could have been implemented, but now this conflict has worsened, essentially because the taxi industry, and there's a legal authority of the MEC in any particular province to oversee the regulation of the industry organizations. And MEC Grant and the DA have failed the people of the Western Cape in this regard. Secondly, we have a situation where there needs to be the commitment to deal with this. And I want to challenge the MEC today that if the MEC is not able to deal with this, we need to approach the Premier and the full Cabinet to actually look at the quickest route to implement the Farlam Commission. That lies at the heart of this conflict which currently goes on.
Thank you. I see the DA again. Honourable Kasela.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, pursuant to the media reports that 11 municipalities in the Western Cape are being investigated by the Hawks, the DA in the Western Cape would like to categorically state that it is in fact 4 municipalities, not 11, which consists of George, Canaland, Beaufort West, and Oudtshoorn, all of which are probed by the Hawks. George, where we had a raid by the Hawks in April, is being investigated for fraud and corruption. Canaland for alleged racketeering, while Oudtshoorn and Beaufort West for alleged fraud and corruption. It must be noted that Canaland and Beaufort West relate to matters that arose when the ANC was in government before 2016 local government elections. I once again commend Minister Anton Pridel for his astute and well-deserved leadership of a very good DA governance in this province. And also for leading by example. When this matter was reported to him, within 8 days, the Hawks were there, informed by him to act. We are determined to eradicate any form of maladministration in all municipalities in the province, because the DA government cares, and the DA government is serious about dealing with corruption, not talking about it, but dealing with it decisively. Because we believe that people deserve the best, and we will not fail residents. When they put us into power, ours is to ensure that we don't fail them wherever we're in government. In Cederberg municipality, it is a matter relating to tender irregularities on grant funding. Honorable Deputy Speaker, in Bito, it's issues around the appointment of the head of corporate services. And the ANC is involved there. And they are partners there, not the DA.
Finish off, your time is almost done.
In ending, I would like to also highlight that in Tierwadeskloof municipality, it's a matter of supply chain management, not corruption. But the media obviously has reported otherwise, and would like to state that those are the facts. That is what
Thank you,
DA
member.
does.
Your time has expired. The ANC, Honourable Janchi.
More than 4 municipalities, actually 11, are being investigated by the Hawks for various crime breaches. This is more than 1/3 of the Western Cape municipalities that is a hotbed for law breaking. All DA spins, lies and more lies, smoke and mirrors cannot detract from the fact that serious excesses took place under a DA control at these municipalities. No matter how many times bookkeeping achievements like clean audits are referred to, it does not verify good governance or service delivery. And this is the stage of investigation again, as it shows. Instead of serving the needs of the poor residents, the DA cronies and pals at these municipalities lined up their pockets, siphoned public money, and greased their palms. We saw the recent hawk soup down in George, which had been a subject of various forensic audits and other probes. Besides George, the probes are also progressing in Cape Town, Oudtshoorn, Bito, Canaland, Beaufort West, Cederberg, Tierwadeskloof, Langeberg, Stellenbosch, and Laingsburg. You wish that there's no corruption there, or you're trying to hide. There's a lot of it here. And it relates to issues of corruption, fraud, tender irregularities. You were late, we're dealing with those issues here. Misconduct and irregular appointment of employees from MM and CFOs under the DA watch. There are also sinister motives as the upcoming elections of 2019 draws nearer.
Order, member. Is there a point of order?
Deputy Speaker, this honourable member was absent when the department came to talk to us.
Order, please continue.
He thought that the truth would not come out. What we are fearful of is that the factions in the DA, that MEC is not going to investigate depending which faction he wants to expose. I thank you, Deputy Speaker. There's corruption.
Order. I see the DA. Honourable Max.
Speaker, I think it's time to listen to something more interesting. The Democratic
Order.
Alliance in the Western Cape commend the Provincial Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport for its commitment to promoting and conserving cultural practices such as Ulwaluko or the bush. The department's customary initiation program aims to create a safe passage and enabling environment for the effective rite of passage to responsible adulthood and citizenship. Deputy Speaker, these secretive and sacred ceremonies are practiced by the Amakos, Amashlubi, and Basotho traditional communities here in the Western Cape. These communities are supported by DKs who offers consultation and advocacy, stakeholder management and coordination, minimum standard for practitioners, training and development, site management, support and monitoring.
Order. Honourable Mitchell, Honourable Dugmore, allow the member Max the sole opportunity to speak.
Deputy Speaker, it is imperative that Ulwaluko is coordinated with the utmost care and attention as this process shapes the value system of our future fathers, uncles and grandfathers. It is imperative that instructors and traditional surgeons are vetted and registered, without which our boys could fall prey to substance abuse, sexual violence, and genital mutilation, dehydration, or animal attacks. Deputy Speaker, the DA in the Western Cape is committed to ensuring our young initiates are safe throughout this important procedure because we are committed to a socially inclusive, creative, active, and connected Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of member statements. Order. We move on to motions. Are there any motions where notice is given? None? Honourable Kondlu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move with notice that the House debates farm evictions under the DA-run government in the Western Cape.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that. Honourable Schaefer.
I move that this House debates the National Minimum Wage Bill and its impact on the Western Cape.
Thank you. Notice taken. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House debates the negative effects of gentrification under the DA in the Western Cape. I so move.
Notice is taken of that one. Any further? For the last time. We then, Honourable Kivido, are you trying to get up? You're halfway there.
May I? I've got it here. Yes, it. Okay. No minutes without. Yes.
Honourable Dugmore, are you ready to move on? We then, Honourable Kivido, I'm afraid we have to move on.
Okay.
We then move on to notices without notice. Honourable Dugmore.
Speaker, I would like to move without notice that this House notes with pride that the 26-year-old Siatanda Kolisi, representative of the Stormers in the Western Province, is the new South African rugby captain-elect, and notes that this flanker and multi-talented player will lead the national side a few days before his next birthday as the first fully appointed black captain, and welcomes his selection on merit and wish him, his teammates, well in all their endeavours under his leadership. I so move.
I take it there's no objection to the motion being moved without notice, nor is there any objection to the motion itself agreed to. Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move a motion without notice that this House condemns those individuals who incited and participated in recent violent protests and looting which took place in Hoodlands Mitchell's Plain. Further note that police and the relevant crime intelligence authority identify these individuals and detain them immediately. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Hinana.
Deputy Speaker, thanks very much. Motion without notice that this House condemns in the strongest terms possible the sexual abuse of a 9-month-old infant girl from Delft. That this House further condemns the brutal and inhuman actions of Mortimer Saunders, who confessed to the murder and molestation of a 3-year-old Coty Peterson in her Elsis River home. The murder and sexual assault of the child and woman is too far prevalent in our society. As a nation that has already overcome so much, we can no longer stand for the torture and abuse of our women and girls. I so move.
Thank you. Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice. I move that the House notes and commiserates with the family, friends and comrades of ANC and ANC Women's League veteran Grace de Klerk from Bela, who will be laid to rest on Saturday, 2nd June 2018.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Kivedu.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House condemns the school robbery that took place at Lwanle Primary School in Kalicha earlier this week. We thank God that no one suffered major injuries during the incident, although it was reported that teachers and learners were held at gunpoint. No arrests have been made as of yet. We urge anyone with information concerning the incident to please report all necessary information to SAPS. I so move.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Makaleni.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House commiserates with the Nkoma family, which lost 4 of its members who perished in Vrygrond fire at the weekend. Notes further that the deceased included 3 children, a 6-month-old Tria, 7-year-old Mbali, and 10-year-old Onago, as well as their 35-year-old father Humphrey, and conveys condolences to the wife, family, and friends.
Thank you. No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that this House commends Tamarin Green, a final year medical student from Paarl, Western Cape, who won Miss South Africa 2018. The 23-year-old will represent South Africa at the next Miss World pageant. Tamarin's passion for medicine and uplifting South Africa is a testament to what true beauty is, namely being selfless, kind, and generous. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Bierwinkel, you're giving it a miss now? Then Honourable Nkondle.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes on Tuesday Parliament by an overwhelming majority passed the National Minimum Wage Bill, despite DA opposition, and will now see millions of workers earning at least 3,500 rands a month. Notes further.
Order.
Notes further. I'll wait for you, MEC. Thanks. Notes further that the bill is meant to reduce inequality, stimulate economic growth, and alleviate poverty in the country, and notes once the bill becomes law, all low-income workers can start earning more dignified salaries. I so move.
Any objection? There is no objection. That will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Botha. Order. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice, in light of Child Protection Week, that this House notes and acknowledge all volunteers who are working with children. Not only are these volunteers developing our little ones, but they are also ensuring that the most vulnerable in our society is protected. Furthermore, they also actively support initiatives to find children that might have gone missing. They are true unsung heroes. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes and welcomes the appointment of Ugandan Professor Mahmoud Mamdani as an honorary professor of the Centre for African Studies at the University of Cape Town as part of the university's stated path towards decolonizing the institution and to mark Africa Day, and further congratulates Professor Mamdani for this appointment which will be his second stay at the university after he left almost 20 years ago following a fallout with his faculty that had rejected the implementation of a foundation course on Africa which the professor had developed. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House commends the current Stormer captain and loose forward Shyamthanda Siya Kolisi, who has just made Springbok history by becoming the first black test captain as he will lead South Africa against England next month.
Order, order. We will have a look at the actual wording and see if it's exactly the same. If it's the same, the first one will have preference. I take it there's no objection to the motion. If not, then the motion is agreed to, but subject to what I've just said. Honourable Kivedu.
Speaker, ek stel as moties onder kennisgewing voor dat die huis die brand wat die Boetman Junior Skoolkoshuis van die Delabat Skool vir gehoorgestremdes in Woester vernietig het met leedwese betrede. Ek stel so voor.
Geen bezwaar dat die voorstel sonder kennis is nie, geen bezwaar teen die voorstel self. Goedgekeur. Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes with concern reports from women on farms that Drakenstein Municipality is preparing itself for large-scale farm evictions, as farmers have approached courts for eviction orders which will affect thousands of farm workers. Notes it is reported that the new national government legislation to benefit and protect farm workers' rights prompted farmers to start turning their farms into holiday cottages and evict workers to live in informal settlements, and calls for the intervention of national government to institute investigation into farm evictions in the Western Cape. I so move.
Any objections? There's an objection I sent there. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Inana.
Deputy Speaker, on the motion without notice, that this House extends its sincerest condolences to the bereaved family of the deceased and wishes a speedy recovery to those who were injured due to the yesterday alleged train attack. That this House further commends the train crew for their speedy response to the emergency as they quickly decoupled the burning coaches to prevent the fire from spreading to other coaches. These alleged attacks are barbaric and reflect PRASA's inability to beef up security for its commuters and infrastructure. Metro Rail must ensure that all trains and coaches are fitted with CCTV cameras and security personnel. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes that the taxi violence has erupted afresh over the past weekend, leaving at least 13 drivers and communities killed. Notes further that the latest violence between rival taxi associations broke out after the Honourable MEC for Transport Grant had failed, as is his responsibility, to mediate in the previous Delft taxi violence. Further commends the intervention from the police, which included deploying the South African Police's Tactical Response Unit, as well as the National Intervention Unit teams to complement station deployments at identified hotspots, and calls on all role players to cease the conflict and appeals for calm in the industry, and appeals finally, as this House, for the MEC to urgently resolve the governance issues which beset the industry.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? There's an objection that will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Max.
I hope Member Duckmore didn't get this one. Deputy Speaker, I move that this House commends the Cape Town-born current Stormers player and lock, Peter Steph du Toit, who will become the 60th man to lead the Springboks when they play Wales in Washington this Saturday. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I see Honourable Bierwinkel. Honourable Bierwinkel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes and condemns the nonsensical and clownish accusations by J.P. Smith and Honourable Mark Wiley to reduce people's grievances over poor service delivery by the DA as part of a plot to make the Western Cape ungovernable. Notes further that the accusations are not only unfounded, but also borders on stupidity, as everybody knows that the communities are up in arms against the DA that continues to give substandard services to the poor. Appeals for calm in the Western Cape. We don't govern in the Western Cape. Appeals for calm in the Western Cape amidst all these tensions, appeals to all to desist from illegal acts, and calls on this provincial government to prioritize service delivery to the poor communities in the province.
Is there an objection? There is an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House notes and congratulates Mr. David Green, a WCED Life Science Curriculum Advisor, and his wife, Ellerine Green, on the crowning of their daughter, Tamron Green, as Miss South Africa 2018. We share in your joy, and we wish her well in her journey. I so move.
Honourable Mitchell, that's fine footwork. That one is acceptable. Any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Nkonlu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House notes and welcomes the initiative by the National Department of Public Works for the rollout of the first phase of 400 million to upgrade 13 provincial harbours to boost the small-scale fishing industry and tourism in the Western Cape. Notes further and appreciates the delight of stakeholders who say the project will change their lives of many fishing communities and tourism operators who rely on the harbours in the province, and commends the department for taking on this real game-changing intervention. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Hinana.
Thank you, Speaker. Motion without notice that the House congratulates the Democratic Alliance for winning the yesterday by-election in Saldanha and Oudtshoorn in the by-elections. Further confirms to build the quality of its citizens by providing the quality services. I so move.
Any objection to the motion? Is there an objection? It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Janchi, you may proceed.
You have to listen to
Order.
this one. You have to listen to this one. That the House knows the ANC is growing while the DA is in a tailspin, heading downwards, as was seen in yesterday's by-election in the rural areas.
Order. Order. Order, members. Allow the member the opportunity to proceed.
Further notes, the ANC gained 15 support in Saldanha and 17 support up in Oudtshoorn. The DA lost 17 support in Saldanha and lost 9 support in Oudtshoorn. You have to determine
Order.
who won yesterday.
Order. Order. Any objection to the motion being moved? There is an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes and congratulates our own Professor Letitia Rispel, who has been elected as the first woman from Africa as the new head of the World Federation of Public Health Associations. This remarkable achievement speaks to what South African women can accomplish. We salute her for demonstrating what is possible and for a continued fight for health equity. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Are there any further? Honourable Kisela.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I hereby move that the House notes and congratulates DA activists, professional staff members, and all public representatives for ensuring a well-deserved and hard-earned victories in both Oudtshoorn and Saldanha Bay by-elections. Further notes that the House extends its gratitude to both communities for their continued trust in the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you. Any objection? Order. Any objection to the motion being moved? There's an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Chief Whip, do you want to move something?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, that the House requests from the Minister of National Public Works why the 400 million rand for the small boat harbours to be spent has been reduced from the original announcement of 1 billion rand.
Any objection to the motion being? There is an objection that will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Nkashela, is there another one?
Yes. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes that overstrained municipality will from the 1st of June 2018 implement level 2 water restrictions, barring the use of hose pipes towards cars and boats. Further note that the first level water restriction tariffs will apply accordingly. I so move.
Any objections to the motion that will be moved without notice? No objection. Is there an objection? It will be printed then on the order paper. Are there any further for the last time? Then just before we adjourn, may I from my seat also welcome Judge Musi and his delegation to the House. They will shortly engage with us on a very important matter. And members are then requested to remain behind and not to disappear when the House is adjourned. That concludes the business of the day. The House is adjourned.